So to introduce myself, my name's Riley. This is my fourth year in FTC, and I kind of specialize in the marketing and documentation aspects of the team.
My name's Chase. I'm also from Uplift Robotics, like Riley. It's my fifth year in FTC, and I am kind of a project manager for the team, so I do a little bit of everything. And to start off, Varun, can you give us a quick overview of just what teams you've been on, what your main roles were on those teams, and in addition, any significant accomplishments you had in FIRST?
Yeah, so I did both FTC and FRC. I was on FTC 97.7 Hazmat and FRC 1902 Exploding Bacon. On Hazmat, I was the team captain and programming lead. On Bacon, I was the programming lead. In Hazmat, we made states a couple times. We're in the states finals, and I won the Dean's List finalist for Florida FTC. And for FRC, my senior year, we won the championship chairman's award.
So one question I had because of that track record is you were on successful FIRST teams in both FTC and FRC. What special knowledge do you think that you were able to gain from kind of being able to understand the structure, the philosophies, and the inner workings of both teams from both like an engineering and kind of internal political standpoint?
That's a really good question. So I think that I learned a lot about managing people and soft skills from FTC, and then how to lead an engineering team from FRC. The format of FTC with a smaller team means there's a lot more focus on individuals, and you can really pick up who has what skills and how to cohesively use them. And with FRC, because the teams are a lot bigger, there's kind of more focus on a proper engineering structure like you would see in an actual company.
So I'm going to start off by asking, how do you continue to learn as a mentor on the team?
So I've always said that teaching is the best way to learn. There were definitely concepts that were just pretty new when I was a student that I didn't have a full grasp on, that as a mentor, having to explain those concepts and learn about them myself, I've been able to learn a lot from teaching. And then on the non-technical side, there's a lot you can learn from being in a position of authority and having to manage people.
Okay. So next, what made you want to be a FIRST alumni?
To start, I just had a great time when I was a student. I want to help other students have a great time like I did. And I think it's a really important cause. FIRST does so much to teach young people how to get into STEM, how to grow their confidence and their leadership skills, and all sorts of life development. And I had amazing mentors that helped me grow as a person, and I want to, pay that back.
How have you used software knowledge that you've gained throughout your whole entire FIRST career in college or some projects you do today?
So the obvious answer there is that as a CS student, I'm always using the skills I learned from programming in FTC and FRC. They provide a really solid backbone, probably even more than any of my intro college classes. And then outside of that, whenever I'm working on personal projects or working on projects for classes or for the organizations that I'm in, having been part of this organization where we do big year-long projects with multiple people working together and having to learn skills on our own has been way more useful than any formal class I've ever taken.
So one thing that I've heard from a lot of kids is they left FIRST and left high school per se and went into college in the real world. Is there are so many things I've learned now that we really could have applied back then. And I wondered if there was anything that you've learned in your work experience or your college experience that you realize now that you could have used back in your time in FIRST.
Right. Whenever I learn a new skill that I think would have been applicable, or a new form of management, or even a soft skill, I do think about, it would have been nice to know this. It would have been nice to apply this back then. There are a couple of technical things that come to mind, but I think an important takeaway is that for everything you learn in college, I wouldn't have changed anything that I actually learned, because all of those failures and all of the janky, weird things we did in high school, it set us up to, appreciate the importance of the right way of doing things later on. Maybe I would have used some more formal management tools, maybe some more formal software development tools, but I don't think it's actually super necessary to do that in high school. I think it's important to fail and develop things on your own and not always do things the right way the first time.
That is very interesting that you bring up the point of doing things janky tends to help you learn a lot. That's something we've actually been trying to push on our teams, is our designers have become a little bit too rigid with like a professional design process. So we really started like going backwards, and we're like, okay, let's start building things with cardboard again and all that kind of stuff. And we discovered that we and then especially our freshmen do learn quite a bit more that way. So since you've been on multiple teams, as I said earlier, when you look at the traditional leadership structure of your average first team with the mentor-student dynamic, what would you like to see changed?
So I think that I have a different answer here for FTC and FRC. I think that for a lot of FTC teams, the biggest change is that I think there needs to be more mentors with special technical skills. On my team, there was no one who had any programming knowledge. And while it was great to learn things on our own, it would have been nice to have a resource we could go to. For FRC, it kind of tends to have the opposite problem, where teams are run by mentors with technical knowledge. And so you end up having over-reliance on mentors, students going to mentors for things that they should be trying to do themselves. And even if they couldn't do it, even if they failed, students should try before going to a mentor. So I think that FRC is kind of over-mentored and FTC is kind of under-mentored. And I'd like to meet somewhere in the middle.
Do that. So I think we will jump into the fun questions, as they're labeled. So what was one of your favorite or worst memories from a competition match?
Ooh. Okay. Favorite memory, definitely the time, or at least maybe funniest memory, was when we were on the division fields for FRC at champs, so big important match. And in the middle of the match, our robot, like, it stopped working. I was on the field driving, and all of a sudden there was no response. And we realized about 30 seconds later that for a weird bug in the field management system, we swapped controllers with other people. And there's this huge scramble to, like, fix the controllers, get everyone the right controller again. All the robots are spazzing out on the field because no one knows what's going on. It was terrifying at the time, but pretty funny looking back. Worst memory, probably when the autonomous that I wrote messed up and broke a robot, like a 120-pound robot, in half in the middle of a field at competition. That wasn't great.
If you could go back in time, what is something you would tell your first year in robotics self?
So I tell myself, don't be afraid to, like, try out all the new things, especially the non-technical stuff. For my first couple of years in first, I really stuck to programming because that was what I knew. And I really didn't dabble in anything else, especially the non-technical stuff. And now as an alum, I think those are honestly the most important parts. And I wish I'd done more with that as a younger person.
I think that's what we hear from almost everyone, is just, I wish I could have done more. I wish I started seeing the commitment level I saw senior year earlier. It's always like that you missed out on something. And I feel like that's just part of life, but it is definitely interesting because everyone has something slightly different that they wish they had done differently. Even the kids that all did software, the kids that all did hardware, like, they all have something a little different that is just based on their personal interest, that they're like, I wish I had done this.